Okay, hello people. This is Dr. Shali Genga, and this is episode 8 of the Ignite episode. I am always excited about the guests that we have, but today I'm particularly excited because we have a guest who I really admire. I'll allow her to introduce herself.
You admire me, Dr. Muzima. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Kaleyke Mumo. Known to many people as a media personality, grown into a media consultant, voiceover artist, actress, and a lover of life and Christ, and a podcaster as well. I have a podcast, Conversations with Kaleyke, an online IG live called KMradio that's run 4 years, and became a top 2 of the People's Choice Awards 2023. So really proud of those achievements. Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the show. We will pick your brain and ask you many questions. And today we are looking at a very interesting topic. We are looking at the topic of waiting. And before we get into waiting, I want to define it like I always do. Waiting. How does the dictionary describe waiting? Waiting is defined as to allow time to go by, especially while staying in one place without doing very much until something that you are expecting happens or until you can do something. The other definition is the action of staying where one is or delaying action until a particular time or event. I do not know if there is anyone out in this world who enjoys waiting.
God
dislike waiting with all my heart. I'd rather avoid getting something done than wait. Even when I leave my house where when there's no jam. I feel like I'm dying, like my brain is...
So you need to work on the spirit of patience. It is a fruit. It is a fruit of the spirit to be patient.
I know, but it's such a struggle, and waiting is part of life. It's something that we cannot
can't avoid it. I mean, you're waiting for your tea to boil, and that is the baseline of waiting. And then you're looking at the tea like this, and you say, "I'm tired." And the minute you turn, your sufuria has just decided we are now ready to boil. And so waiting is, yes, you can't avoid it in any aspects. But I think in some areas, the waiting becomes really difficult because it affects different aspects of your life. And unfortunately, as viewed by society and the pressures. And I think the ultimate one is especially as women, is waiting to get married, waiting to have children. That waiting, oh God, that has got some pain to it that is, excessive.
And waiting is never easy. Even when you look at your life, are there examples of situations where you've had to wait for things, whether it's your professional career, whether it is your personal life?
Oh, absolutely. I think most people who have never heard the background of my story was that I knew very early on that I wanted to be on radio. I knew that I had the gift of speaking to people. I love storytelling. I love listening to stories. And I wanted it as early as I was 8. By the time I finish high school and I'm telling my parents that's what I want, they're like, "You're crazy." Because of a generation of parents that I come from. They're like, "That's not a job." So you just sit there and talk. That's what people do for fun. I'm not paying for nobody's education to go and just sit and do fun. So I had to wait to finish the degree that I was being paid for because I knew I needed the papers. At that time, we didn't have the options. There was internet. I think the internet was starting maybe when I was a second year. That's when www was the beginning. That just tells you how far back that was. And so we didn't have other options. So you knew if you didn't go and get the degree and there was someone willing to pay, you're finished. So I waited because I wanted to be on radio. I waited through 4 years of campus, got out, started to look for it, still didn't get it, waited another 5 years before I got a foot into a radio station. Not because I didn't know the people, not because, in fact, when Capital was starting, when Metro was starting, Metro FM was initially using the name Capital. They're the ones who started, right? And so I went for the auditions and I was finishing campus. That was 2000. And I was going for the auditions and I got in. And one of the producers really liked me and really pushed for me to keep going. Swahili let me down because they wanted people who can do English, but somehow they said, no, you must be able to do plus Swahili.
Okay.
Yeah, so I waited for 5 years before I got into radio, officially after graduating. But you can imagine, initially, I've waited for almost 10 years because I wanted it from when I finished Form 4. So when people say, you just got into it, and I'm like, bruh, no. I waited, and then the question that is always key is, what are you doing as you wait?
Okay.
And I think that's most important. So that was the first element of waiting. Then finally get the position, or rather get a foot in the door at Capital. And then what I'm anticipating is not what I'm being offered.
What were they offering you?
So I won a Radio Idol competition. Got in to get a radio training, no guarantees of a radio show or being hired. And then eventually when they have an upset, a problem, they don't have one presenter is giving them drama, that's when they're like, come. So you come thinking, I'm being given the job. No, you're just being used to be a feeler. So you're looking, you're saying, okay, so why am I still on probationary salary, and yet you've made me an anchor for your breakfast show? Like, what's happening? So after some time, I'm like, hapana tumiwa.
They were not paying you?
They were paying me, but they were paying me the salary of an intern.
Ooh,
but I was their main anchor.
Okay.
So after discussions here, there, and there, I realized, here, I'm being used as a way to hire Shanice. So one day we walk into the studio, 5 a.m., and there's someone sitting there. And you're like, it's 5 a.m. Who are you? We don't have a guest at 5 a.m. Do you know you guys just do the show? She's come to take over. I was like, let me tell you some. Okay. You have not paid me what I should be paid to anchor this show. You've brought someone here, some good Samaritan there told me, hey, by the way, that person has been brought to replace you. You are just holding fort. And I was like, goodbye, bye-bye. I left. Wrote to Kiss FM. I was like, that's the other station. Let me just tell them, hey, by the way, I've been on air here for a couple of months. I'm looking for a new position. And they called me. When I get there, I'm thinking, at least I showed them I can do this. They tell me now, we don't have a radio host position, but you can do news. I'm like, what? How
many years are these that are going by?
This now,
from the dream
to now, and let's even just count the dream from after fourth form. Let's not even go back.
Okay.
So remember now, I finished from 494.
Okay.
Now we are 96 is no. Where are we? We've gone through campus. We finished at 2000. We've run around trying to find a way, foot in inside. We are now at 2005. Okay? In 2005. From 94. You do the math. Bado. Then they tell me news. I'm like, what is news? Why is news? News requires you to be an editor. I'm like, I don't care for this stuff. Yes, I studied IR, but I was doing it because it was the degree that I was told to do to give me an upper hand. Then you have to know sports, because also at those days we didn't have special sports anchors, and we didn't have we didn't have a way to get content on a sports mat. So it meant that you'd have to be in the office by 4 a.m. so that you can catch the sports coming
every
off the news.
4 a.m.,
and record it, and then now know what it means, whether you care or not, because you have to present it at the end of the news. So you're a presenter for the news, you're the editor, you're running the newsroom, you're collecting sports as well, because that's what there was at the time. There wasn't any sports show, nothing. So, I'm like, God, I just want to be a presenter and give stories. What is happening? And so from that time, I was begging every day, like, please, Maze, I go to the boss. I'm like, please, you just give me even a Sato show. Yani, I just have a feeling of...
You were so determined, because most people would have given up,
Today's people, today's generation would have told them, I can't do this. I was an anchor at Capital FM. But listen, Kiss was the biggest station at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and I'm now inside. Fight your battles when you are...
When you're inside.
Yes. Yeah. So I kept begging, and that's how I ended up getting into the rush hour.
How long did you do the news for?
I did the news before I got there. I did it for about 8 months.
Okay, 8 months, yeah.
8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's now 2006, August is when we began the rush hour.
Okay. Yeah.
You imagine.
Oh my gosh. You had to be very determined to wait that long. Because someone else would have been like, I'm done.
Yeah.
This dream is not for me. I've tried.
But I also think being a young person at that time and knowing what you want, and I think that's the key difference. Do you really know what you want? How bad do you want it?
Okay.
That will help you be patient, waiting, and finding ways to get there. Because by the way, let me tell you, when I graduated, the places I wanted to work were places where I thought I could get into the radio station. So because I did IR, I worked at the Turkish embassy because that was part of, doing your internship, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, I'm bored here. So when an opportunity came to work with homeboys who were setting up their office, their first office at the mall, I was like, and these guys have just gotten their first DJ show at Capital FM.
Okay.
All right? If I go work for them as their office manager, maybe one day they'll send me, listen, thought process.
Yeah.
They'll send me to Capital to deliver the CD, because that time we used to make music mix CDs.
Yeah.
That's how they would get it onto the station. And because there was no live DJing at that time.
Yeah.
And then when I go there and I'll say, hi, my name is Kaleyke, I've been sent from Homeboys, they'll hear my sauti and say, oh, come for a voiceover. We like your voice. And then I'll get a job. Nani, I had thought this thing from through.
Far,
I had seen, I was like, so if I'm with them, and then, if I'm hanging with them, maybe they'll think, this chick is not so bad if she's working for the homeboys.
Yeah.
Because by that time, I've already sent my CV over and over and over again without getting in. So I thought maybe now if I'm with people who are known, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, how many people do you know today who think like that?
Nobody. You had you had connected the dots from far, and you're like, I will do what I need to do. I will strategize. I will. If the door is locked, I will just come through the window,
and I'll say, hi, I'm here. And at the end of the day, listen, at all this time, my mother is on the rooftops thinking, what nonsense is this child doing? Yeah. She's gotten a whole degree. She has left people who could have employed her at the Turkish embassy.
That was the opportunity for growth.
I finished my internship. They even gave me a contract, but I was bored out of my mind. Honestly, I was really bored. I was so bored. I was like, what am I doing here? So I tell her, I'm working at Homeboys, how she's thinking, you're working for boys who say they stay at home. I mean, they couldn't come up with a better name. Then they do what they DJ. What? They play in discotheques. Because, that's what my mom called a discotheque. Yeah. It was bad. Let me just say things at home were tough. But me, I was focused.
Yeah, I know. You must have been very focused.
I was focused. And, of course, by the time, anyway, all that happens, I leave the Homeboys. I go to work at another studio called Rough Cuts Productions. For an extra 2,000 bob in my salary. Now I've moved from we lived on Wayaki, we were still living at home. Homeboys had set up at the mall in Westland, so my bus fare was kidogo. My mom's like, so you've been adding 2,000 bob and you're using it all for bus fare to go and work in Karen. I mean, because the studio was in Karen. She's like, what? But me in my mind, I'm thinking, if I go there and they teach me production, and also they teach me, yes, I know I have a good voice, but maybe they'll teach me more. And something they did. Extra, yes, And so I was, before long, now doing voiceovers, extra money. I learned how to be a sound engineer on the job. I learned a lot more, even if I was now being paid 10K. I've moved from Homeboys 8K, now I'm at 10K. People who graduated with what I graduated with were being paid 25K. That is 2001. They're being paid 25 Gs. So my mom, of course, is just like, Jesus Christ, this child. Is what in the nonsense, Anyway, so that for me was my first real example of pure waiting, but waiting in faith. I'm not sure I can do that, or I'm doing that waiting with faith and hope, because that was a lot of hope.
You are undeterred. Like, no one was going to stop you. You are like, I'm getting there. I'm doing it one way or the other, and I was not losing hope. Things were tough. I mean, if you've now gotten a job that you're using all your bus fare, the extra money is all bus fare. Yeah. To get to Karen that time was not cheap. And you're using all that because you have seen these guys can help me enrich myself in a way that my parents wouldn't agree to pay for me to go to a school to learn it. So I'm thinking, go,
use all that money, and then I love my hair. I love my hair, but I cut it because I couldn't afford to keep it on the money I'm being paid.
But were you even like aware of the cost you were paying for your dream, or you were just like, you're just doing it on
focus. We are getting where we are going.
On auto drive.
We're on auto drive. We are going. Lord, I need to revisit. I need that kind of hope, because these days it's not there.
That's madness. Like, you're so determined. You're like, whatever price I need to pay.
I mean, I even took karaoke jobs at the time, and now I'm doing a 9-to-5 job.
Okay.
And Karen is fast. So by the time you are leaving Wayaki way,
Karen was even farther.
Karen was farther.
Back then, when the roads were not
that good. The traffic was insane. The metro shuttle had just begun when I started. So I was like, phew, I'm not going to railways. That's a whole other thing for me. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And so I was like, okay, the metro shuttle. But then, it used to take the long route that goes through KSL, uko nyuma. But that I used to enter that shuttle and just black out. Because by the time we are getting there, it's like 1 hour, 30 minutes. So you can imagine how early you have to leave the house. Because when you get to Karen Shopping Center, you have to walk an hour, 15 to 20 minutes to where the office is, because it's inside. And you have no money for a taxi because there was no Uber then. And the taxi will charge you whatever they want to charge you. So you still have to walk to get there. Now, I've come from a karaoke job that ended at the Intercontinental that ended at 3 a.m. I've slept what? Blink out back to get to Karen to walk to work, so that I can save enough money so that when I get this job, because I know my mom will not be happy I've gone to work now at a radio station, I'll move.
You're like, I'll show her.
I'll show her. I got this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, every time you're going, because you also want to move, you buy 3 sufriyas, you say, I'm moving. You put your 3 sufriyas. Tomorrow you buy a sieve, I'm moving. But I mean, I was really determined to get this thing done. But that period of waiting to getting my foot in the door, I had a period of giving up. The period of giving up was at the juncture where I have worked at the studio. Yeah. And then there was a lull in the industry of production. Okay. And that studio, we were the highest charging studio at the time. I'm talking about 2002 to 2003, Rough Cuts Productions. Okay. And they used to charge 8K an hour that time. And that's a long time ago. That was a lot of money. But we used to get people. Then there came a lull in 2003. And we just weren't making the money, so the company wasn't able to keep us on. And so now they were like, maybe we give you guys, we make a smaller company, then we make you guys shareholders, then you have to work to pay yourselves. I told them, hey, me where I'm at, that's not what I want in my life. And I got to move to another studio, Mediva. You remember Mediva?
Your journey to the rush hour,
it was long.
You moved from
Homeboys, Turkish Embassy, Homeboys, Rough Cuts Productions, Mediva. So at Mediva now, they give me a job to be the sound engineer, and I'm finally like, guy, and I have to be I don't have my Muzungu boss to tell me what I'm doing. Crap, I have to work. And so now I'm here producing. We did Tazama, then we did Agenda Kenya. Okay. Now it was during that period I'd already. So this is between 2003 to 2005, let's say mid 2005. Mediva was a funded organization. Ford Kenya was funding it. Not Ford Kenya, Ford, the international organization. Look at me. And sorry. Well, anyway, so there are moments where funding comes, funding disappears. So it's not as consistent, but it was extremely aggressive work because when I got in, I was coming to fix the problems that another sound engineer had created that recorded and messed up everything. So I have to come and fix. So.
And are you seeing like where you started to now being the sound engineer?
At this time,
and now you're the expert.
I'm now the editor. Now, guess what? Radio who? This, because in between all this time, I'm sending my CV everywhere.
You're still sending?
I'm still sending. And those days we had to use fax machines.
Oh my gosh.
So you wait for the boss to disappear. So I'm like, okay, this thing, at this point, I'm now feeling like this thing is not working. And anyway, I have a big title. I have my own studio. I'm the sound engineer. forget this radio journey. And so I started now assimilating into this thing. Only problem is I was working like 14 to 15 hours a day.
That's a lot.
So I was not being seen at home. Remember, I was still living at home. My mother is having a fit. And she's thinking, you're with boys, you're drinking, you're where? And I'm thinking, my friends don't even see me. My only extra curricular activity is to do my hair. Like on a Saturday morning, because I'm working Saturday afternoon, Sunday. There's a lot of editing going. You're fixing someone's work, and also you're still shooting. So fast forward to now, that's between 2003 and 2005.
Okay.
By that time, I'd already given up. I'd already stopped sending
Oh, so
CVs
at some
from
point
about
you had
2004.
stopped.
I was
Okay.
like,
Okay.
what's the point?
So from 94 to 2000 and
Maybe about 3, 4, I was sending.
You're like, there's still hope. The dream.
Then when it got really busy in 2004, I just now focused on what I was doing.
Yeah.
And when I focused on what I was doing in 2005, say about June, July, is when they have this Radio Idol at Capitol. And my friend at the time is like, they're asking for a CV, just send. I'm telling her, do you know how many I've faxed? Do you have any idea? I do know from 1995 when Capitol was, 97 when Capitol was launching, was 97, between 97 and 99, around that time.
Yeah.
I've sent, I'm tired. Now I'm doing something that's actually working and I'm not being paid bad money. So
you are doing well. Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah. And this, I think by this time, I'd managed to move out. So it was working for me. And I'm like, I'm not sending. So she bothered me for the 2 weeks when they were asking people to send until the last day. She called the office every hour. My boss is like, can you just talk to this person? I'm like, Jesus, you'll make me get fired.
Everyone needs a friend like that. Eh?
I'm like, what is wrong with you? You know, that's now borderline harassment.
Yes, yeah.
So I now tell her, okay, it's going to 5:00. You're bothering me. My boss is asking me, what's up? What do I need to do again? So she tells me, just email them. This is the address. I think Marcus and Leo were the ones on air at the time.
Yeah, I remember them.
She tells me, just email them your CV. So because, I'm tired, my CV has sound jobs. And as a sound person, every job you touch, you indicate the job, the year, what you did on it. I had 10 pages worth, okay, between 2002 and 2005. Mimi, I emailed the thing as is. I didn't edit it to suit the job as you're supposed to, right? Because guess what? I'm thinking, they won't call me anyway.
I've done everything.
I've sent demo tapes. I have gone and recorded expensive demo tapes at the Kasangas that time. You've gone and bought a TDK tape. Because you can't afford a CD. Like, friend, I've done it.
Yeah.
So I send this CV. I attach it to the email and I say, your search ends now. I am the radio presenter you need. Attitude. Why? Because I was tired.
And you're like, take it or leave it, I don't care. Yeah.
They were, so then now my friend tells me, put on the radio. So I put it on and I can just say, hey, there's another chicken. She's only 28 and she has a 10-page CV. What? And then she's written to us, this one, we are adding her on the list. She must come here. Yeah. And that's how I got my first Radio Idol slot. It was mad with problems as well. Because the day I'm supposed to go in, my boss decides we are now ready to shoot Agenda Kenya. We're going for a recce and we're going to try and set up. And I'm just there like, guy, hii recce inaisha saa ngapi? I need to be at Capital FM before 3:00. And you know the time is just that, the clock is just moving. I'm just like, la. I called Marcus. I told him, imagine, guys, there's a problem. I think I even made my mother sick that day.
Your mother.
I have an emergency. I can't come. Give me another day. So they tell me now, these things are arranged, but the only other day is a public holiday and people don't listen to radio on public holidays. But that's all we got. I told them, it's okay. Just give me that day. And I went on that public holiday and I remember the top agency at the time, Scanned. The boss at Scanned, head of agency and whatever it was for radio, whatever, was listening to radio as he's driving, going to look for some food because he has a hangi. He turned his car and came to Capital. Who is this?
Yeah.
Who is this? And then people were to vote.
Okay.
And they voted, and I got into the top 3, and I won the competition.
So when you look back, okay, I know that now opened the opportunity
to go to
KISS,
radio.
and
Yes,
that opened the rush hour
yes,
opportunity to have your own show.
yes.
Because now you still had to fight the
the journey
to
of
continue,
news,
yes,
to get into a show, to
Yeah.
get into, yes.
When you look back at the different experiences that you had, do you feel like they are what made that moment momentous, or what made you stand out the most when you did Idols in radio?
I think for me, by the time I was doing the Idols on radio, was more of a pleasant surprise. Remember, now it's 5 years since I graduated, and I'm like, what? I'm here. I'm actually here. Wait, I'm actually here.
Okay.
Now, I've almost missed the slot because I had my boss, my actual current boss, tell me we have to finish a job.
Okay.
Then I now get an opportunity to come on a day no one listens, and then I was like, maybe I was actually called for this thing. So maybe I should pay attention to what God is saying. And in the time, I can tell you for sure, whatever I learned in those 5 years of not getting into radio when I wanted, I would not be who I was if I had not waited.
And we live in a generation that says that if something is for you, then it will be easy.
And it will find you.
Yeah, that's the romantic idea of finding your purpose, that it will always find you, and it will always be easy.
Right.
And to just see your journey, like there were doors everywhere blocking you at every corner.
Point.
Even when you got into Capital, you weren't able to stay there long. You moved to, because they weren't giving you what you wanted. Yeah. You still had to go to KISS. And even at KISS, it wasn't like, here is the job that you've been dreaming of all your life. You still had to go and fight while you are there.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't understand the concept of waiting. And I think you said it very nicely when you said waiting in faith, or is it waiting in hope? There's
waiting in hope. You have to have the hope that what you're waiting for will come. And if you don't hope for it, then it definitely will start to become very blurry, and you'll lose the focus because you don't see that it is possible. So as you're waiting, one, are you growing yourself for it? Because that's during that time, I was able to grow myself. I was able to learn things that my peers didn't have. One of the advantages, like you've asked me whether it gave me an upper hand at the show with Russia, it did. Why? Because I had learned how to produce, how to edit. I knew what was catchy. I knew half the elements of radio before I got onto radio, and so did my co-presenter, because he had done production. Only that when he was hired, he was not sitting inside a show. He was doing production of adverts and things on the other side, but he had the know-how.
Okay.
Yeah, so it definitely did help that I learned those things as I waited. Had I given up and said, now I'm working at the Homeboys for 8,000, and then I get to go to Karen and for another extra 2 Gs, where am I going?
Yeah.
I would have missed that training. And I would have missed the opportunity to meet the people who called me to work at Mediva, are people I had met while working at Rough Cuts. Like, it had something. Everything had a purpose.
It's almost like sometimes in the waiting, you will have to do things that are not, and there's no immediate gratification.
Yes.
There's no reward for it. It's like when people look at you from the outside, you don't look like you've grown.
No.
But you're busy. There's a price that you're paying.
Yes.
There are certain things you're doing. Because a lot of times people think that waiting means I just sit. And I wait, and whatever it is I want will find me and come and say, Charlie, we've been looking for you here. Here it is. And the first no you get, you become so like, this was never meant to be. Maybe God had no idea. And I really like the concept of hoping waiting in hope.
Yeah.
And at the same time doing what can you do
while you wait,
while you're waiting.
And that's, I think, for me, why Maverick's song Waiting on their award-winning album that they released last year is a key. It says, while I'm waiting, I will pray. While I'm waiting, I will worship. While I'm waiting, like, what's your spirit as you're waiting? Are you growing yourself? Are you bettering yourself? Are you identifying the things in you that might be blocking you from getting to where you need to go? Yeah, and this applies in all elements of life. I mean, the key and biggest one is waiting for marriage, like I said. That's the one that's used as big, but if you listen to the story I've given you now, the waiting to get my career going, surely.
Hey, it should have been like,
Hey, it
this is
should be
the
there.
wrong
This is-
career.
this is
This
it.
is not for you.
Yeah, just give up.
Give up. This is not your career. And yet you went on to dominate and to excel in it in so many ways. Yeah.
So you can imagine the people I met while working at the Turkish embassy, and they're like, we didn't know that you would be this. What? Wait, you are working in our embassy, setting up their trade department. That was where I was. The first Turkish exhibition that was done. I was one organizing how that's gonna work, talking to the Turkish businessmen there, and they're just clashing on the English and the Turkish. But those are the things I would have been doing for the rest of my life. But I had something else in me that I had a desire to go for. And I also think God doesn't put certain dreams in your heart or certain desires without wanting to fulfill them for you. You would not have the desire, for example, to put together this particular podcast if God didn't have a vision for where he wants you to go and whose life he wants you to touch.
Okay.
Because if you're doing this for you,
I know you.
It's never about you.
Yeah.
It's never about you. It'll give you joy, but it gives him glory.
Okay, I like
That's
that.
it.
Yeah, I like that very much.
Yeah.
Because the concept of waiting is so misunderstood a lot. And I think that when there's sometimes like in your career, there was something that drove you, that even when you were paying the price, it's almost like there was a grace over your life. And even though these choices you made came at a heavy cost, you are clashing with your mom, you are leaving a well-paying job, which looked like it had trajectory for promotion and growth, and moving and sacrificing to go all the way to Karen. There was a grace. A lot of times when we go through seasons, or even I can think of when I was trying to get into the media, I'm naturally an introvert, but in that season, for some reason, I was an extrovert who was extremely optimistic. I was chasing after it like a mad person. And I think that sometimes we forget as we get older and then we get into another season, like it's almost like God has already shown you what you need to do, and it came easily.
Yeah.
It's almost like I guess when people fall in love for the first time, there's this ease with which they are curious about each other. It's almost like there's a free gift to just show you like this is what you need to do to maintain this relationship. Right. So that when you go through the season where it's not as easy, you're meant to replicate
what happening then.
The free gift that you got originally. Yeah. Do you feel that sometimes we do forget that we come from the season where there was the grace and we paid the price and we chased after a dream that looked impossible. And then now we get into another season where we need to do the same things. But I always say that we have amnesia. I feel like human beings, we forget. Like we our mind completely forgets, and then now you're chasing after something new, and the moment it gets hard or the waiting is tough, you're like, I give up. You go and have a pity party somewhere and just say, I'm done. My life is over. This is a waste. Yeah.
Even just sitting here talking to you right now and recapping that story of my life, I've just had a revelation of if you waited then. Why are you struggling to wait now for the promises that you're looking for? Why are you struggling right now, Kaleyke? Why are you struggling? And I'm like, Lord, we're in the middle of an interview. Because I'm like, he's just asking me, so you waited. And your heart, you had a joyous heart, you know, and as you are joyful, that's like worship to God, because you're happy to push yourself, you're happy to go through different things. And never once do I remember being depressed that I'm not getting this thing, so I'm not going to do anything about it.
Okay.
I don't remember. And I'm like, I need to go back to that 20-year-old who was so joyous and expectant of life. Because as you grow older, there's also the imaginary clock that time yako imepita. So I've been going through that whole phase right now of, your time has gone. Yeah. Now it's no longer, they are younger people. They are doing things in a different way that you can't do. So,
okay, I do get. Yeah. And and do you think that, and I think like the last podcast we were looking at the ideal.
Yeah.
And a lot of times waiting almost like makes you question the ideal, because waiting contrasts with with the way society say this is how it's supposed to go. These are the timelines.
Yes.
This is how it's supposed to go perfectly. And when you're waiting, oftentimes, whether you're waiting for a baby or you're waiting for a spouse or you're waiting for that promotion or to get that job that you always
really
wanted,
yeah.
you'll always look on the side and see there are some people who have met their targets. You know, like life seems to be working.
Easy.
But also I do realize that a lot of times waiting, everyone must go through waiting in one way.
And you're
the other. There's no escape.
And you're waiting. If I was given, I might just collapse.
Yeah.
Because God has not given me the grace to wait the way He's given you that grace. And so learning that there's nothing that God has put in your heart that He doesn't give you the grace to wait for is what the enemy wants you to think, right? That you can't achieve without being broken, this thing, wachana nayo. So for example, waiting for a spouse. Me, I was sure at 25.
Yeah.
I should be married. My mother got married at 25, even me. Let me tell you. The birthday came at 25 and there was nobody in the relationship. See, I cried. Whoa. I really had a bad birthday. I don't know why I had a bad birthday because it was my plan.
Okay.
Now, in waiting, and this is now, at least for people who know God, it's not about you.
That's a tough one.
It's not about you.
Yeah, because everything is about us. We like to think that
and also we think that we are empowered to do these things. Maybe I don't have the sufficient capacity to handle a spouse, and that is why I'm still in waiting.
Yeah, and you know, like the challenges I think for waiting, the number one, you said the ideal. Your ideal was that by 25 you'd be married, and I'm sure as the years have gone by, the ideal has been changing, and so now I don't know if you're comfortable sharing your age, but I'm sure maybe now you're like, God, the clock. It
ticked. It stopped talking. You know, that's how society makes you feel. But I'm turning 48.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't look it, so I thank the Lord for the graces that I don't look like I'm turning 48. But one of the things I know is that when I now look at what marriages look like for my friends who got married young, where they are now, what they wish they knew, and what I know, I'm happy to get married later in this age. And I'll tell you why. The stupidity that I had. The thoughts, the way I would have addressed things, what I know now. And that's why I was saying, when I compare it to that period of waiting for work, there has to be learning. And God keeps you waiting so that you learn certain things.
Yeah.
I've learned certain things that now I'm like, I would not have handled that well if it happened to me. Just by looking at some of my friends. And there's so many, unfortunately, who got married early and their marriages are over.
Yeah, there's a number who
there's
are
such a number who are over. Such a number who, when they now sit to have a conversation, they're like, I really rushed into that. I had not even assessed why are we getting married? What are our goals? Where are we going? Now I'm like, you have to align on certain things. I now know that. I also now know that if I had gotten married without Christ in my life, I would not have made it. I would not have made it in the world. And I'm not saying that there are no people who are married in worldly marriages and they survive, but hey, I know stupidity was a lot.
No, there is a lot of there's a lot of issues there, and you know, like I guess there's the balance of fighting against the faith and the belief, and then the challenges which are maybe the ideals.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there are also people who come and tell you maybe you're in this season because you haven't done this? There are people who haven't understood. They feel like if you pray like this, if you fast like this, you're not dating hard enough. It's almost like even maybe a lady who's waiting for a child, or even a gentleman who's waiting for a child. And people are like, maybe your parents did this, or maybe
let me tell you, I think
for,
that's like the most painful thing ever. Maybe because I'm a strong character, there's some things you're not just going to come and tell me. You also say, hey, approach Kaleyke with caution. I am blessed to have that look because I hear some things that other people get told, and I'm like, huyu mtu aliamka kwake. akakuangalia hivyo akaona akuja kwa yani where is the mercy, where is the grace, where is the
and sometimes they think they are helping you,
but they're being so mean.
like someone tell you don't have a job because you need to repent, like the idea. And I don't know why, even when you...
It's in the Christian world. In the Christian world, there's... And they come with that churchy vibe.
Yes, and they feel like they're justified. There is this idea that waiting is an abnormality. It is something that cannot
you're being
happen.
Punished.
Okay, yeah, there's always that.
You're being punished for something you did. You're being punished because, there are things you're not letting go of. You're being... I've really watched and heard it all. It's not been said to my face. I'm sure it's said behind my back. I mean, just even my fans, they talk really badly. I mean, I just keep saying, "Guy, who's your mother? Does she know you're typing like that?" With people saying, "So, sasa unaongea about relationships na hata hujaona tuambia," and I'm like,
That's
okay.
Yeah.
So you just because you do not know of a relationship I've been in, because I didn't let Kinashali write about it at Pulse, that doesn't mean I wasn't dating, And that's how I ended up doing my love story for Conversations with Kaleyke, because I was like, guys, I actually have gone through things. Yeah. Some of them have been very shocking.
Yeah, I watched.
Some of them have been very shocking. And so even just what people come and present to you, I think a lot of people are presumptuous, especially to women who are married and haven't been able to conceive. I think that is really, really abuse.
Yeah.
That you come and have an opinion. You have no idea what's going on in that person's life.
Ask.
You should never even ask.
Yeah.
Even that thing of which is an Africanism of, hey, so now that you got married, when's the baby coming? Get out of my space. You have no idea, one, what we want. And it's okay not to want children, by the way.
No, it is okay.
Okay? It is not a curse. Are we enabled to take care of this child? A lot of people have come and told me, then basi kama si hujaolewa, then at least uzae kamutu ukue na mutu. And I'm like, me, I don't have the capacity to take care of a child by myself. Me, the way I'm built, we need to be two bringing up the child. I'm not doing this and half your genes and madness is in this child and I'm dealing by myself. I am not built. I'm not strong enough. I know there are women who are power to you. Me, I'm not. It's not I. But if you're going to open your mouth and say something, be encouraging. Because guess what? The tables can turn and one day it's you.
And waiting on something, it can be a job you're waiting
and yet,
for.
And your heart is so invested in it. And then someone just comes and says one thing and you break. But you don't remember you said that to someone else.
Yeah.
Hey, you have to be careful with what you say.
Because as long as you're alive on this earth, you will go through waiting in some capacity.
Different capacities.
Everybody waits. Waiting is part and parcel of the process. And even as much as there are challenges of waiting, there are certain things you learn, like there are certain benefits. And I think you mentioned some of it, like learning about yourself, learning about relationships and knowing and finding God. There are certain things you learn, like you're telling me, I need to learn patience. You learn,
it's never too late to learn.
No, you learn patience. And I do believe that we can still maximize the season that we are in, even as we are waiting. And I think that your story about getting your job in media is an example of that. What do you have in your hand? What are you doing even as you're waiting? Because the idea of, there are some people who, I was reading a book and this lady was saying like, she had a friend and she had been all her life, she had been waiting to get married. She eventually gets married when she's 42. And she makes this statement that I can finally start living my life. And I thought that's the saddest.
What were you doing before?
The saddest thing. And there are people who, as they're waiting, you'll find, even whether you're waiting for that promotion or whether you're waiting for marriage, you're waiting for that child, or you're waiting for your child to join campus, there are certain things you can still enjoy your life. There are certain benefits even in waiting. Has its own benefits. And now if I was to ask you, for example, even as you're waiting, because I do believe you will find your person when God
and
decides.
He'll be amazing.
And he'll be wonderful and amazing. Yes. But even in this journey, there are many things that you've benefited from walking this path. There are many things you've been able to do that maybe you would have never been able to do if you are in a relationship.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's absolutely true, because I think even just with the examples of what dating was like when I was on mainstream media, the intimidation that the male species around me had was unbelievable. And they couldn't separate between there's Kaleyke Mumo, the presenter, and there's Kaleyke, the one that is coming home.
Oh,
Could not separate.
Oh, okay.
And that even, you see it with the likes of Margaret Thatcher and her life and all these amazing female leaders. It's very difficult to find somebody who will be able to see you as just their wife when you come home, because the world is speaking to them. And so that person needs to be so grounded,
strong,
so grounded, and understand you so well that they know that what you are outside is your job. Because I always ask them, okay, so you're married to a doctor, you're married to a pilot, what do you know? What do you know what he does every day? No, you don't. Do you know who he talks to every day? No, you don't. So just because mine, you hear it publicly, now you've decided mine is the problem.
I know, yeah. No,
You get
what you're saying is a lot of sense. And like when we think about the process of waiting, even some of the things you've mentioned, we think of the story. I think one of the most glaring example of waiting in the Bible is the story of Abraham.
Yeah.
From the moment he got the promise, he was 75.
Yeah.
So he waited a whole 25 years before the promise. And in between, God maybe affirmed the promise like 3 times. And so in between, first of all, at 70...
You're almost like, my guy, yeah, you're a father of nations. I'm not fathering nothing at 35. But okay, I'll work with you. I mean, for Abraham and Sarah, there's so many things that we learn from there. Being given your promise late in life doesn't mean it's not. Look, when KFC was being launched, how old was the man? He was 53 when he came up with that. Whatever his life was like before was extremely tough, right? But at 53, he's made a brand that is a legacy that you're enjoying. Mpaka down in Kakamega now, they have what? Come on. And he was given his promise at 53. Abraham was given his promise at 75, but it didn't even activate until 20 years later. But in between there was doubt. You're not going to go through places where you're not going to doubt, almost make mistake, throw it away. And we serve a God of the 11th hour.
Yeah, that's
just
true.
When you're about to give up, just wait a little longer is when he appears. Yeah, it's when he appears. Because you've seen with my example of how the 11th hour for me was, I've now decided that my life is being a sound engineer and I'll be working 14 to 16 hours a day. I have no life. I have no friends. I have given up on this radio dream. And then at that time, and I even sent it at the 11th hour. I sent it just before 5 o'clock and the deadline was 5 o'clock with attitude. And I got it. Even you forget, like, whoa, wait, what? That cannot have been me. It can only have been God. So for the lessons of Abraham and the challenges that even Sarah faced in her disbelief of saying, this God of yours promising you that you'll be a father of nations, you just take my servant and go and get yourself a son. There was such antagonistic doubt inside there. But at the same time, guess what? Even after they did all the nonsense they did and the mistakes.
Yeah, the Ishmael of every weight,
God still gave Isaac. And then after that, he tests you again and tells you, now go and kill him. My friends, today be told the gift you got, the one you waited for, go kill him.
The one to sacrifice.
I don't think we have that grace.
But very interestingly, it's the faith that was built in the doubt and in the waiting.
Exactly. That's that thing I've said, that you have to be able to wait with some hope, because Abraham is still referred to as the father of faith. He's a father of faith because somehow, despite the mistakes, he still got his promise.
And what I love about that story is like, and oftentimes it happens to us. It's that God waits until it is impossible for that dream to happen. Abraham was 100, Sarah was 90. There was no logical, physical. There was no possibility that dream was going to come to pass without without God stepping in and doing something. And a lot of times when we go through life, when we have a promise and when you reach that point where it is like this thing cannot happen, the easiest thing to do is to lose faith. Instead of saying like, if God could do, God loves impossible. I think he likes to come with a chariot in that moment
Let me
when
tell you,
it looks impossible.
This is what my vision of God is. He needs to prove to you that he is God. And he needs to move through example of certain people. I am convinced. You guys, me, my husband, my wedding, my everything will be, you guys will be going, also you'll be hearing about it a year after we got married because me, I like private. But I'm just saying that I know for a fact that he wants to use me as an example to show I am still the God of the impossible. I am still the God seated on the throne. You guys have talked badly about her. You've trashed her. You've said now, because having a husband makes you a somebody.
Yeah,
so if you don't, you're a nobody.
Yes.
So I have been nobodied and rubbished for years. Yeah? But I know that he has to put some people to shame and say, do you know that I am her father? And so I believe that. I have hope in that. No matter how bleak it may look, no matter how many weirdos I meet, I have hope. And that's the most important part.
Yeah. I love that story. I love that story. I even love the story you've given about, and even just clarifying, waiting is just not sitting and waiting.
Yeah, you must
do
wait.
something.
You must wait as you
do something. Don't just sit in your mother's house and say, I will get my dream job
to go to her,
and it will come and find you in their house.
To land through the ceiling and provide. You're crazy.
And the first barrier you get doesn't mean that it's not yours.
Yeah.
And even as we come to a conclusion of this very wonderful and enlightening episode, what advice would you give to someone who is waiting to go to campus, waiting to get a job, waiting to have a baby, waiting to be married, waiting to have a happy marriage? Because there are so many, waiting to beat their addiction, waiting to retire, waiting to be able to follow their dream. We're always waiting to lose the weight.
We are waiting
for healing. Like life is waiting. A lot of times we are always waiting. What would you give to someone who maybe has reached that point where they're thinking like,
I can't do this anymore.
This is never going to happen. This is so impossible.
I think the main element of all those things is, how bad do you want what you're waiting for? And I say that because if I didn't want to be on radio so bad, I would not have dragged through 5 years of even setting foot into a radio station. I would not have waited that long. I had graduated in IR. I had good grades. I had the opportunity to be a diplomat if I wanted. I had the opportunity.
Okay.
But how bad did I want the radio? More. I wanted it more. Okay? How bad do you want what it is you're waiting for? What are you willing to do to get it in the right way and to also grow yourself to be prepared for it?
Okay, that's important.
A lot of us want things, but we are not prepared for it. You want to be a great radio presenter. You have not studied. You have not read. I used to listen to Capital all the time and start rehearsing in the mirror how Eve D'Souza, Modoni Buika, how they present. And I used to be in the mirror and I say how they say the radio station name, time, Nini. So I knew certain things. Why? I was preparing myself for what I wanted. Okay? So you want a baby. And this is biological. It has nothing to do with you. Have you read? Have you discovered? What are the options? What can I do? Have you opened your mind to the fact that you can have a surrogate, you can do IVF, you can adopt? Are you open to even just that? Because guess what? I may have reached an age where I may not be able to have my own baby unless God intervenes, but I can adopt. Me, I'm open to it because guess what? I know that there's a child that needs love. Right? So what are you doing to prepare yourself? How badly? The more you want it, the more prepared you will get.
And you also have to be willing to look like a fool for your dream, because people be like, what are you preparing for? It doesn't look like it's happening. I always think of the story of Noah there with that big it's like I call it a big boat, but it was an ark. Like, can you imagine how ridiculous?
And do you know how many years
waiting for rain?
First of all, do you know how many years it took for him to build it? The years it took for him to build it, those were the years of drought.
Can you imagine the ridicule? Can you imagine how people laughed at him, preparing for something that he was just told that this would happen,
and he
has seen no sign of it.
And he said, because God has said, I will do.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't know when.
You don't need to know.
I'm doing it, and I'm going to do it. And guys, and that time, it was a very horrible, corrupt time with the way people had fallen away from God. So they're all like, which God? This God of yours. Look how stupid you look. We haven't seen a drop of rain for the last 2 years. There's been famine. You're telling us what? The ridicule. But then you still have hope and you still have faith.
And even before you finish, even after they entered the boat, it took some days before it rained. I can just imagine them, like they've been laughed at.
You're sitting
they picked the animals 2 by 2, and then they've sat in the big ark, and it takes a couple of days before it rains. Can you just imagine?
Like, what?
They must have really been laughed at. I'm sure people are just standing there, just observing them and laughing by the side.
You can imagine. You can imagine. But the truth is, whatever you want to get and you're dreaming of, you have to want it bad enough to be prepared for it. I mean, a lot of people, like I've said, will ask me why I talk about relationships and they've not seen me in a marriage, the successful. Me, the things I learn from the conversations I have, you sit there and just think I'm crazy. Me, I'm learning from the people I talk to, the people I interview, the conversations we have on KMradio around relationships. I'm learning. I'm hearing from people who have been in these marriages. I'm hearing from people who have experienced different things. All that will make me a better wife because I'm learning. So me, that's my preparedness. So if you want it bad enough, start preparing, keep the hope, wait in hope, and do something as you wait. It doesn't matter what you're waiting for. That's it.
And in closing, I think I'll just reiterate what she said. If you are in a season of waiting, I hope that everything that we have said today or anything that we have said today will encourage you and let you know that even when it seems impossible, if you have that promise, don't lose hope. Continue waiting, continue believing, continue putting in the work, prepare for whatever it is you're waiting for. And I think we'll close it there. But even as we close, we just want to tell Kaleyke, thank you for joining us and just inspiring us and encouraging us about how we should wait and what we should do as we are waiting.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.